Dzień
dobry.
Dzień dobry, hi. Okay, so hello everybody. Today we have a special guest in our webinar series. Thanks to the embassy and Frank, thank you for being with us as well today. Frank connected us with the expert from the city of Utrecht, Hans Seckers, and he will be able to show us some interesting example from the city of Utrecht and other European cities. So I hope you will find this session very interesting, and it will broaden our course here. So thank you very much, and I think I will pass it to our guest now.
Okay, good morning. I don't see you, but only a few people. That's all right, or?
Yeah, I think that they will join a bit later.
Okay,
maybe, yeah.
and we have more.
Oh, sorry, I think you are muted, Hans. Okay, perfect.
I did something wrong, probably. Well, good morning. My name is Hans Seckers. I work for the Municipality of Utrecht. And this morning I like to tell you a little bit about work we do also together with colleague cities in Poland, Sopot and Gdansk, and Vienna and Lund in Sweden. We're developing a kind of approach inspired by human rights. So it's and to make the bridge between urban planning on one side as a discipline we all know, and human rights is of course something for most of us, I think, something for far away, for that we think first of what's happening in China or Congo or Chile or somewhere else in the world. But in this project, we're trying to find out that there's also very interesting inspiration for what we do on municipal level. And of course, many municipalities and communities have a long tradition in contributing to human rights implicitly, because we do all kinds of things on care, on housing, on security, on youth policies, and so on. That's all, yeah, also a kind of contribution to what we can call an international standard, the quality standard of human rights. What I like to do to make that a little bit more explicit. So what is happening when you start to think on urban planning, the things we're doing in our municipalities from a lens of human rights. I like, if that's all right, like to share some slides with you. Let me see. Is this visible now?
Yeah, but it could be on a bigger screen. Oh yeah, perfect. Now it's perfect.
Okay. I'm putting it here. So what my point, the starting point is that there not that many cities, as I said, that work explicitly with human rights as an integrated approach, and certainly not on urban planning. We have a lot of examples, of course, on refugees, on LGBTI policies, on disabled programs around disabilities, and so on. But on urban planning, it's quite interesting to look for the few examples that we can see worldwide. And I think that, yeah. And to start with some, on bigger cities that are trying to do that they, as calling themselves a human rights city, to have some examples where this is about. Barcelona, speaks about the right to housing. It's very active internationally on that people not only have a need for housing, but also a right for housing, and try to implement that also in their own local policies. And it's in a way of trying to do something for lower income residents and regulate all kind of rent control and limit vacation rentals. We know all the difficulties in cities like Venice or Amsterdam or Barcelona, that houses and apartments are rented for very high prices and so not available for local population anymore. In São Paulo, there's a little bit other tradition that they speak about the right to the city. And so they claim that not the money and the power is very important, but the people can have their own, their own line, their own direction of what to do with the city and how to use the city. So that is more the tradition of social equity and for example, participatory budgeting is something how to give influence directly to neighborhoods and streets and people in communities to how to spend the money. South Korea is also a good example. There are some South Korean cities working on as a human rights community, and that is more about how to take urban design, make it more inclusive, how to involve people into co-design and how to develop kind of planning that is in how to create public parks and how to involve all kinds of groups and interest groups in this kind of process. Then these were only a few examples of cities, big cities that are trying to translate the international standard, the language of human rights into a kind of adopt themselves to this vocabulary of human rights. What I'd like to show you, but please interrupt me when you want to go in the other direction. I will show you a little bit what is this human rights-based approach, because that's also a kind of discipline that is available. So there is something to say what is human rights and how to use it locally. Then I will show you an example of an organization in London, based in London, the International Human Rights and Business Institute. They have developed a method for urban planning on dignity in building environment. I can show you an example from Vienna that is implementing this kind of methods on district level, so smaller neighborhoods, and try to work with smaller communities in a bigger city. That's all human rights explicitly. There are also many traditions and methods like space making, human scale methods that is less explicit in human rights, but is going into the same direction. And finally, I like to show you something about what we do in our urban development plan for 2040 of the city of Utrecht. Is this something you expect, or should I talk about something else?
No, I think it's interesting. I don't know how other participants. Yeah, okay. I think we can go in this direction. Mm-hmm.
Well, to start this human rights-based approach, what is it and what it's not? It's a method that is developed by the United Nations. It's specifically the OHCHR, the Organization of the High Commissioner in Geneva. And what they try to do is that human rights are in the center, to put human rights in the center of public policies, programs, and services. So based on these international standards and principles like respecting and promoting and fulfilling and protecting human rights are the basic principles. And it aims to address inequalities, vulnerabilities, and discrimination of specific groups in the population. And the idea is when you do that, that's good for everyone and not only for a small group. Then the centrality of people, of inhabitants, citizens, non-citizens, everyone that is living in a community, in a city or a place or a village, or are rights holders. So they are not beneficiaries, so they're not just people you give something to, but they have the right to on specific facilities and an ecosystem in which they can do the thing that they want to do. Duty bearers are those who have to ensure the rights that are exercised, but that can be not only government, but also businesses, NGOs, universities, media. So it's a principle in which all kind of organizations should work together more or less locally. It is an analytical method. It's based on international standards and is these four principles of respecting, promoting, fulfilling, and protecting as dimensions of human rights, and is addressing inequalities, vulnerabilities, and discrimination. So the key principles of this kind of approach for urban planning are, when you translate these principles I was mentioning, then you're talking about participation, ensuring that all residents, especially marginalized groups, unheard voices, have a say in urban decision making. It's based on non-discrimination and equity. So addressing inequalities and ensuring that all people have access to basic services and opportunities, regardless of race, gender, income, or ability. It's about transparency and accountability. So urban planners and authorities must be accountable to the public, ensuring that decisions are transparent and rights-based. And sustainability is an important key issue. So promoting environmentally sustainable urban environments that respects the right to health and clean environment. And finally, the fifth principle is inclusivity, ensuring that cities are accessible and designed for the needs of all residents, including people with disabilities, elderly, minorities. Well, this is, of course, very nice principles, but the idea is behind it. It tries to say that there is a shift from a needs approach to a human rights city approach or a human rights community approach. And this is about how you look at people, how you look to problems, to needs, rights, stakeholders, who is involved, and also the scope. What is the way you look at local situation? Is that just by looking to the local situation, or do you also relate it to what's happening in the rest of the world? Well, the participatory approach is very basic, and the vision on the approach is from a sectoral, well, in most cases that you go from a just sectoral vision to a more integrated way of working and combining all kinds of sectoral approaches. Well, to sum up, this human rights-based approach is broadens the scope. It goes from holistic, from a human rights to a gender perspective. It encourages in integrated responses. It tries to suggest to have more sustainable outcomes, and it interconnects sectors. What is specific for human rights approach is that it's that it tells the story that people are not just people, but they have a right to claim and bring that in the discussion. And of course, not always everything is possible, but it's at least a starting point. It puts people in the center of the policies and not the technology. It puts particular attention to people in vulnerable situations that have to take care of and develop strategies to empower these people and that they are able to bring their rights on the table. This is, of course, a lot of ideology also and theory, and it's not easy because this integrated approach, instead of a sectoral approach, it needs coordination, and coordination means that people have to work together, and that's difficult. In a situation of decentralization, that say, well, locally we know better what should happen in the world, and instead of provincial or regional or national, then coming up with an international quality standard feels for many colleagues in working in municipalities even worse than national guidelines or regional policy frameworks. And thirdly, human rights education and training is mostly absent. So we don't have that much knowledge in our municipalities about what human rights are, what exactly the articles say in the international treaties, conventions, how they are translated to the international level. So it's a kind of professionalizing challenge that we also have to take into account, that not that is, you need some experience and knowledge to start working with it. But I think it's still worth. And this is one of the examples that I like to show how it could be translated in a way that makes things easy. This is a project supported by this Institute of Human Rights and Business in London. That is the organization that also did during the Qatar World Championships football. They built a lot of stadiums, and I think 6,000 people died during the building these stadia. And the IHRB was the organization that was watching it and making reports about that some things in this building process were not very human rights proof. What they developed is a kind of framework for dignity in built environment. And it guides decision making throughout the built environment life cycle in order to manage the risk to human rights and to maximize these social outcomes, as we were talking before. The implementation of the framework involves active participation by local communities, respecting the rights of workers, expanding access to adequate housing and services for all, and ensuring that all directions are free from corruption. So the framework includes targeted questions for different stakeholders, clear references to existing standards, guidance, the documents, and the Sustainable Development Goals as point on the horizon, what should contribute to, and real-life examples from around the world. So they make a combination of human rights articles, international principles, questioning how you could translate that, and having examples.
My English is very good, so thank you.
Hello, good morning. This is the planning circle they develop, offering as an analytic framework that they say in every stage of local development, you can have a specific perspective from a human rights lens on what's happening. For example, you can't worry who is the owner of the land, who is deciding what can happen on that spot. Then where's the money coming from? is this corrupt money, or is it? Do we know how it's financed, etc. The design is about who is involved in design, who can have a voice in what should be the function of the place. The construction is very much about, is there a guarantee for workers' rights? Is it safe to work? Is it safe to build? The way we manage it and use it as a specific lens on the stage that that things are there. How is the maintenance? How is the organized, and what kind of technology is used? Is it the data protection of all kind of data collection on the hardware of the city? And after a while, things also have to be demolished and recycled. And is that done in a kind, we start to reuse the materials? Is that the whole thing of reusing and recycling, is that integrated in the whole building process? Well, these are lenses of analytical way of looking that you can go more into depth. Then they say, well, we need to look at all kind of actors in this process, and not only to the investor, and not only to the governments, but also who is constructing, who is designing, who is working or using the buildings and the public spaces that we are creating, and who is owning it. So it tries to give some tools in thinking about what we are doing in our communities and cities. This framework you can download it very easily on the website of the Institute. And it looks like this. There are several sheets that are related to the design and the circle I showed you. And this is one of them. It's about design. And you see that they have some basic questions or entries to the topic. For example, the built environment expands inclusion, accessibility, regardless of age, ability, race, gender. So if this is a principle, they start to ask questions. So what is a guiding question here? Have representatives of groups at heightened risk of vulnerability provided input to the design process? Yeah, this is a simple question, is yes or no. And then they give some tools for where can you find, what are the international standards on this? Where, in which convention, which article is actually saying something, what is the standard? And then they have all kind of interesting examples of places in all over the world that is trying to translate the principle into reality. So it's this is just one, but they have all kind of slides on how to invest, how to build, how to and so on. Bergen is perhaps we can have a look if this works. Is this working?
Yeah, I think we can see the film.
Do you hear something?
No.
Okay. Okay. Let me see how to come back, because well, you didn't hear the voiceover. I guess, but you saw some of the
Yeah.
extra slides. But now is the question how to come back. This is not working. Yes, there we are
Perfect.
again.
Now we see everything.
Yeah. We also try to use this framework in the redevelopment of this area. This is in Utrecht. This is the Utrecht football stadium, and the whole area you see on the picture here from around the stadium will be redesigned. And there are several parties. There are owners in the flat buildings. There is the owner of the stadium. There are all kind of users in and around the stadium. This is a NATO headquarter you see on the right side, and there is a huge leisure, all kind of parks and free, sport facilities. And so it's quite complex because there is also a highway behind. You only see the trees. And we agreed with this Institute of Human Rights and Business to take this as a kind of pilot, how we can do a better kind of planning with this kind of principles. And so it starts with an agreement with all these partners that they say, well, we think it's interesting to start to think this kind of principles within our normal process. And yeah, so they're still starting. It's very much to find ways in your normal practice to integrate this kind of thinking. But they are really trying to, and it is about many aspects you never thought of before during in a normal urban development process. For example, around stadia there are a lot of cameras and with face recognition, because some people you don't want to have in this kind of stadia. Inside the stadium there is a lot of singing that you don't, with songs you really don't want to hear. And but it's also about the safety and the security. Who is feeling safe to go into this area, because it's at the border of the city, and now it's sometimes it's dark. It's a place where you better cannot go. Although the more green area on the left side is one of the most beautiful places where you could do a walk or whatever. So it's interesting process, and but I cannot give you the conclusions on this moment because it's all still in the making. But there's at least a kind of willingness of all the partners in the owner of the football club, the owners of the flat buildings, etc. And they agreed on to try to do their best on using these principles. These are some of the plans that are now coming up with more housing, and redesign of the stadium with new functions. And you see also that the greening space is co-designed in a first draft of what could be developed there. Our studies. So for us, this pilot is additional to the regular design process, and it looks from the perspective of a human being and focuses on the social goals within the area. It's increasingly challenging to meet the needs of generation of users and society in a broader sense. And this pilot offers a broader scope and playing field for realizing social added value. And the intended impact of the project is making social goals more explicit based on this international sustainability SDGs, and a more complete picture of the risks and opportunities for users and the added value to be achieved. So strengthening the cooperation between the actors involved and actually realizing the goals and creating social added value in the project. in the project is considered health benefits, greater social inclusiveness, social function of the built environment, absorbing the impact of climate change on the urban areas, and of creating jobs. So these are the things that, by taking this lens, the partners having in mind as more explicit goals that they try to realize in the whole process. In Vienna, this was my third input. Is there perhaps someone that like to say some or have an experience or bring in a better example as I? Otherwise, I'm talking perhaps a little bit long. No, shall I go on?
Yes, I think that's okay.
The city of Vienna, also a big city, but they have declared themselves, I think 10 years ago, as a human rights city. They have a human rights office, and this office is promoting in all kind of sectors, but also territorial, in smaller neighborhoods, to see how this human rights-based approach can become the inspiration for a participatory approach. And here they worked on the refurbishment of a street, so it can be that small. And this is also about creating a council, so mobilize people that like to work together and introducing this perspective to see together what it could be concretely, what it's about, and what is the subject that you try to confront this inspiration. So it's about not about the substance only, but also in the way you create a kind of community around it. So this human rights office, this is the central office, was a kind of inspiring, gave some inspiring guidance to how they could do that on street level, and priorities were defined with the partners. So it's a kind of cooperation between the central city office and local groups. It was based on the right to participation, also involving people that were not having the right to vote, so sometimes undocumented people, but living in these neighborhoods. So they try to have all voices, because some of these people are more than even the documented children, citizens living on the street. So for them, it's even more important in redesigning streets and public spaces, how it looks like and what is created. And for example, in very concretely, water pipes, and also that you can have drinking water all around on the street, and that is for free. That was the right on water translated to this local neighborhood. Oh, what I'm doing. Well, this is a kind of street that is, it's always also about cars in Vienna. Are you able to enter a street by car, and for what reason? So in most cases, they try to have access by car, but you cannot park it permanently, so you have to park somewhere else. But you can still access your house by car to deliver something or whatever. So what happened in this project, Save New Pedestrian Crossing to the underground station. They come with new granite paving, beautiful paving, new zone for dogs, 30 new trees, water dispensers, benches. So it's all small things, but altogether they have at least the story in Vienna that this is the outcome of a process that without this human rights neighborhood approach was not happened this way. And You never can prove the opposite because the other project without human rights was not done, but this is at least interesting story that a city like Vienna is using this international standard and try to inspire local communities to use it and come up with these outcomes. So this is all where you see that human rights is used explicitly. There are also, of course, a lot of methods that also take the human perspective, the people-centered approach, very into the center. And for example, this the concept of placemaking is going into the same direction. So for me, this is the quote, for me, it's about transforming a place together with the people who use it. That means involving them from the start by building on their experience and ideas. And even though we talk about placemaking, it doesn't have to be outdoor public spaces. It could be indoors as well. For example, a company open space that is co-designed with the employees, or a common room in an apartment building for the residents. So this is an example in Copenhagen, turning the space under a bridge into a lively community center with a regular festival. But what you see in many places and cities, that is, they have this kind of examples that they have what could be the same bridge here left under is also a bridge, and under the bridge is happening something. So you see things coming back, and examples what could be interesting is as circulated worldwide as inspiration for what could be a kind of urban solution, including people. So it's also a combination of giving inspiration, not only by human rights principles, but also by very concrete pictures, like the little libraries popping up that people can start to share books, or collecting water. This is the right, upper right, how to have rainwater collection, and so on. And another tradition of including people is let's call it citizen science. So how to involve citizens with mostly little technology, for example, on having it on their bicycle or when they're walking, a little that they are measuring how polluted is the how much air pollution do we have in the city. So this image of where to the red, more intensive red is more pollution, and this is a combined image of all these collectors walking around or bicycling around in the city and producing this image of their territory. And of course, it's also kind of if you can access this kind of images, you also can choose to go another way and have another route to your destination. The human scale is a concept that is focused on designing urban environments that prioritizing the well-being, comfort of people. So it's concept of Jan Gehl, the Danish architect, and perhaps also interesting to see what he says. So more space for people means more public life. A focus on cycling and walking invariably improve the life quality in any city. However, when people became tired of preference given to motor cars and demanded more public space, as was the case in New York in the 60s and 70s, conflicts ensued. Just think of Robert Moses, who wanted to build a highway right through Washington Square Park. Jane Jacobs, famous for protesting this. In her book, The Life and Death of Great American Cities, she condemns the car focus in urban planning and sets in. So you see that the last 50 years, the place is given to cars versus people is always a tension, because Of course, people also love their cars, and everyone likes to live in the inner city in a beautiful medieval renovated house, but also want to have a parking spot directly in front of this place. And well, and then the place is not that beautiful anymore. So this is a kind of tension that well, city councils also have to deal with and to find a balanced solution. Finally, I have some story about what we try to work on in Utrecht. This is the picture of Utrecht in the middle, Dome Tower. Utrecht is a city in the heart of the Netherlands, 30 kilometers south from Amsterdam. It's a medieval or Roman city, so it was Romans built it as a border town to defend the Roman Empire against the Germans, and it's now the railway center, and it's a university center. It's around 400,000 inhabitants. And the specific for Utrecht is that it's the core city, the metropolitan area, the university, it's all called Utrecht. So that's there is no much tension between the governmental layers, between the center and the agglomeration and the province. It's quite an harmonious entity. In some other provinces, like in Northern Holland, where you have a big city as Amsterdam, there's always a kind of fight between the big city and the province, and or in the south of Holland, you have two big cities, The Hague, Rotterdam, and the province, but the province has another name than the cities, and so that is not so much the case in. This is, of course, from the Utrecht perspective, a little bit center of the world thinking, but in the Dutch case, Utrecht is also the center of the country, and so you have so you see also that it's a very small country, because to all bigger cities in the Netherlands, you can reach it in 45 minutes. So there is very high density, urban conglomeration, metropolitan area that is altogether 6.5 million inhabitants, with four biggest cities: Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Utrecht, and The Hague, and some smaller towns around it. Then the strategy that is developed the last decade is that we go from a city with the center in a green environment to a green environment in the city with several centers. So we try to densify the city as much as possible, because we don't want to eat up the green environment around the city. But we have to grow very much in number of inhabitants, and but also to keep the pressure take the pressure from the city center away. So we try to create new little city centers and hubs in other parts of the city. This is the canal, how it was 100 years ago, around the city center. This is what it was in the 70s. This is the same place. So we started to create modernized highways through the city center. And this is what it is now again. So this was one of the main city center renovation challenges to to demolish this highway again, and to recreate what it was the centuries before. But of course, you need solutions for the cars that also want to come in the city, and to try to come up with a totally different concept of mobility and transportation. Well, this is our cycle specific for Utrecht is that it's you can cycle everywhere separately from where cars are driving. So actually, in the most cases, the fastest way to go from one side of the city to the other is by bicycle. And I think in the morning, all the traffic is that people go to their work or to school is 60% is on bicycle. And yeah, this is what you see. This is how quickly this city has to grow because there is a lot of pressure on housing and so the city actually doubled sized in around 50 years. In jobs, yeah, you cannot see it here, but it's also jobs and houses. It's a lot to do. So this urban planning process is essential for thinking about how to go forward. And the human dimension is we try to integrate this thinking about what is it doing for people. We try to integrate it very much, and of course it is struggling because urban planning is as the legacy is to think about roads and houses and buildings and but how to start thinking a little bit more into integrating the facilities and how people function socially. And this is the chart that we try to develop as a kind of tool, and we call it a kind of barcode that you see that when you, and it's try to do the exercise when you create 10,000 houses and build this area new. What else do you need to have and not after that you was building these houses, but during this process. So of course it's easier when people already living there and they say, well, and then we see what they need more. But this tries to integrate from the beginning how much theater, how much schools, how much society buildings, what on health centers, how much green do we create during the building process of housing, how much infrastructure, and this oh, I'm going too quick now. Let's see, to this one, no. Oh yeah. So this integrated concept, what people need was the start of the urban planning process, 2040, and it was combined with an idea about the 10-minute city. Because the 10 minutes is, of course, a different concept for someone is on a bicycle and 15 years old, because 10 minutes is a distance then for perhaps 3 kilometers, and from an old lady of 85, 10 minutes, and she has to walk is perhaps 200 meters. Of course, that kind of differences you have to take in account, but as a lens on where do we plan our facilities for the most of people, what kind of exception do we take into account was well used as a thinking model for. I have another slide of this. And then I'm coming back. Oh yeah, here you see this concept of reachability, that is say on neighborhoods is 10-minute walk is 500 meters. That means that you need the basics for a neighborhood, that you can do your daily shopping, that you can go to a sport facility, that you can go to a doctor, that you have a public transportation place where you can get on the bus. That is 10 minutes neighborhood. Then you have a district level that is more or less 2.5 kilometers that you can do by bicycle. And it is district facilities, cultural facilities, the schools for children till 18, sport facilities, and then on city level you have higher education, city facilities like cinema, musea, libraries, and that is done 10 minutes by cycle and more, or you take public transportation. This is a new area. It's coincident, but it's more or less 10,000 apartments and houses. It's very high density, and what is the concept we've chosen here is it's quite close to the city center. Actually, it's a former fair area, and it's I think 15 minutes walk to the city center. And what was decided here, that it's not possible to enter it by car. So you cannot park any car in this area with 10,000 houses. So people are actually made it very difficult to have their own car. And the transportation principle was first walking, then cycling, then public transportation. And if that's not working, you can have a car to a collective, I say that you can rent it for a day, or to use the car. So there are some points that you can take a car to do bigger shopping or whatever. This developed now. It's I think built for 30%. And oh, did I lost you?
No, everything's right. Oh yeah, I think that Hans can have some connection issue. Oh yeah, now we are back. Perfect.
I'm back.
Yeah, we can hear you again.
I don't see you, but
yeah, we can see the presentation, but not on the full screen.
See. We had this image.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You were just talking about the rental cars, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's very much connected with what we try to, because this is all not possible with a very elaborated policy on cycling and bicycles and bicycle storage. And what you see here, what is the problem if you have not people mobilizing to use bicycles in huge way of you have traffic jams, you have a lot of problems on the central station, because this is the biggest central railway station in the Netherlands. So we created here the biggest storage for bicycles in the world, and it's always full, but it's 30,000 places that people drive in 3 layers and can store their bicycles. So this kind of concept of car-free neighborhoods are very much related to make it possible by transportation mobility concepts that you really have to develop for a very long time. It's not something you can do in 5 years, but you need decades for that people know how to use a bicycle, that they are used to it, that they not complaining that they have to take this bicycle. And without this concept, you cannot build this kind of high densities without cars. So it's all entangled in each other, what is possible. And here you see another exercise, that this kind of barcodes that we have to densify and bring all kind of functions together in a very small area to build for this very fast growing city. So we have to create space for make things possible, and this is based on multifunctional use, the change of functions, densifying, make things smarter, combining things in, and also to make things in a smart way in the region, that some functions are also taken over by in the agglomeration and not in the core city. So this barcode is a permanent kind of visualization, visualizing an urban planning process in which we bring together this accessibility, 10-minute city, the mixed use and combining functions, but also to integrate climate-proof policies. We have a lot of problem with air quality, and so if we want to stay below the accepted World Health Organization standard for air quality, we really have to bring back the use of cars in the city. And it tries to integrate inclusive housing, affordable transportation for the people living in expensive cities. This was one we have seen. This is a visualization of this multi-center, but in combination with 10-minute city and primary schools, how to making maps of thinking how children can go to school themselves by walking, and doing the planning process from this perspective. Here you see in kind of if with easy in the right picture you see in kind of created access to another on the other side of the canal, a new walking bridge to, and then you have the 10-minute criterion again. So it's all kind of exercising in with this kind of principles. But yeah, it's all trying, and the world is not perfect. It's just now, and what for us this is also kind of translating human rights principles in tools that could be used in urban planning, like the London organization did, what is Vienna is doing, and we also created some things like that we try to translate the 10-minute city, the barcode. Yeah, that's more or less what I like to show you.
Thank you very much. It was a very comprehensive presentation, and I think the topic, especially about the human rights and dignity, is very new to Polish cities, and we are still have a lot to learn about it. I highly encourage you, the participants, to think if you have any question, whether you can write it in a chat or just raise your hand. In the meantime, I have a question to you, Hans. Do you maybe know what was the reaction of the manual workers who were involved in this dignity framework, and whether there was some sort of collaboration with them? Were they interested in this project, or was it like, oh, we don't care about the safety and so we'll just keep on doing our job how we used to? What was the reaction, and was there any like involvement with them?
Well, what in the Utrecht, you mean the dignity and building
Yes,
environment
yes,
framework?
exactly.
Yeah. in the Utrecht situation, we haven't been in that stage now because we are just in the planning phase. In the Bergen, as far I spoke with the colleagues from Bergen, that they really realized this center. Well, I show you some pictures, but it was not. You couldn't hear what I was heard on the video, but I can send you the presentation, and then you can hear it. Have a look into it. It's also accessible on the website of the Institute of Human Rights and Business, and they have been building this. And what I understood is that they really also work together with the building company and see how the workers' rights were integrated in the planning. And what exactly means, I don't know. But the story is that they had they were involved in this process in Bergen.
Interesting. That's nice perspective. And I also wanted to maybe focus on this topic about the citizen science, because you mentioned it, and I feel like it's still underdeveloped in Poland. I think it's mostly used in academic settings where a scientist wants to study a certain phenomenon, and then they are engaging the citizens. But are you seeing more examples of actual municipal workers looking for this methodology and looking for this participatory research, for example, during some consultations or in some designing phases? How it's from your perspective?
Well, I think that is a very broad topic, and that you see the first that under the label of citizen science, what science suggests that it's related to a research project, but the principle that citizens and inhabitants of a space are delivering data on what is collected by an institution or an organization or an energy company, or that is creating a kind of feedback loop on a more smart system. The most the cases we know best, of course, are always on physical and topics like energy and lightning, smart lightning, or we now have also systems that you have shared cars, and there is solar in the neighborhood, and the cars are using the solar energy, but also storing the energy in the batteries of the cars and giving the energy back to the living rooms. So it's the cars becoming a cycle, part of a circle of energy storage, and in this kind of process there is a lot of data collected, because there are now flat buildings with 100 apartments and only 20 shared cars. And these 20 shared cars are enough for the mobility need of the 100 the people living in these 100 apartments. But it's also based on a kind of knowledge that is that it's possible that not everyone has one or two cars, and because most cars are always standing in front of the door. So, but you also don't want to have that the car is not there is no electricity to drive the car, and so it's a very complex structure that needs all these kind of calculations to make it work. But it's apparently that starts to bring solution on a higher level, and things are now actually we are now building several bigger flat buildings with this kind of number of apartments without the parking facility for private cars. And still, people are enthusiastic for buying this kind of apartment and flats. But in the more social topics, of course, there is all kind of participatory ideas of how to involve people with what they think. Of course, there are a lot of more classical methods on how to survey all kinds of opinions and behavior and what people like about or not like about their situation, and bring them together in more community action and co-design. But that is in the world of digitalization, there's of course very interesting development of the digital twins of so how to create three-dimensional versions of neighborhoods, cities, communities, and that gives also possibility to integrate all kind of real-time data in this kind of models that not per se coming from all kind of individuals and citizens, but just because cars are driving around and people having mobile phones, so we know where people are, like Google can predict on the minute how long you need from one point to B, and when you will arrive, because they know all this. And that's actually also taking personal data from users and bring them into a new kind of information. And that is what also is going to happen in this digital twin models in cities. Yeah.
Interesting. Does somebody wants to comment, to add something? How it's in your cities? Did you start implementing this sort of ideas? In the meantime, I have a question about the other actors, about this project that you are developing in Marwede. I don't know how to pronounce it. How is the reaction of developers? Because I understand that in the end, the city is developing the plans, but it will be the private developers who will build the buildings. Are they not afraid of the reaction and of the sellability of the flats when there is no access to the cars, or they are sure that there's a huge population of people who would prefer this kind of car-free zones, and they are not putting any objections?
Well, yeah, it's in places like Utrecht, there is a huge demand on housing, so there is no problem even during crisis to build and to sell or to rent it. So it's very low risk to develop this kind of projects in Utrecht. So even under the condition that people cannot own their own car, it's still possible to develop this successfully. And because in the Netherlands we have a huge problem in by all kinds of climate norms that we not manage to deal with. There are a lot of decisions that we cannot build anymore. So in the moment that it's that building sites are open to develop, that it's it's becoming slowly an opportunity for investors and builders to work on that. And new phenomenon is that there is a big problem with energy. So connecting new areas on existing energy networks is getting, sometimes there are waiting lists for bigger companies needing electricity for 5 or 10 years. It's
then it can really stop the development. Yeah. Michalina, I see that you open your camera. Do you want to comment maybe?
Hello. I don't want to comment, but I know that it is a pleasure when you see your yours here. But it is very inspiring. I am under. It was very good idea here but I can't see it here in Poland now. It's too early for it, I think so.
Yeah, I think also that we have a lot to learn and catch on.
It's about education for citizens, yes, because I know in my city it is only the car. A car is the most important. Is most important in the streets, yes.
Unfortunately, still dominating, but maybe with little
step by step,
push,
little steps, maybe it will be better, but it can't be a revolution.
Yeah, we work together with the city of Munich in Germany, and there we and they organize since a few years this international Automobilausstellung, the international car exhibition, and they took it from Frankfurt, and the city of Munich has a little bit problem because there are a lot of demonstrations against all the car industry, and on the other hand, they are also very dependent on the whole employment and the industry in Bavaria. But the city likes to also have a kind of counter narrative that they also work on a better version of a car-driven city. So they always invite us to show how to do a street crossing, including bicycle lanes. So the Dutch solution is sometimes a kind of marketing product on other places, but then but every situation is different. And in Germany, for example, there is also a federal law that you have the right to enter every street by car. So they say on the local level, it's impossible to create this kind of areas. At least they think that is impossible, and so this is what we tried to do now is no option for them. So it's not that this should be the end ideal situation for every city, because every ecosystem is different, and of course we have a very moderate climate, and of course it's raining, but against rain you can do something. But when it is icy and slippery and you have a lot of snow, of course in winter bicycle is not always a good idea. So you have or when you have places with are very hilly, bicycles are also not a very good idea. And so I had the visitor, the deputy mayor of Vienna, and he said, yeah, we have 8% in the morning, people going to work or to school in the morning. We also want 50% or 60%. I said, well, that is totally nonsense that you want, because your metro system is so good that and is so much quicker that you never want to have people all on bicycle through the city, because it will not work. It's an idiot idea to want to copy it for a real big city, what we as a smaller town could perhaps work on already for 50 years in combination with all kind of educational programs on how to cycle for children. And every Dutch person has 2 bikes, so it's not it fits very well by a local situation, but every situation is different. So everyone has to find their own solutions, and there is no perfect better option.
Yes, Mihalina.
I want to add something because I think there is a hope in our city. We are closing the frontage of the most important square. Everyone assumes that it will be rose, people will be angry, but so far it's not so bad. And residents with cars have become used to this situation. I think so, and everything. Now is there is calm in the center, and people are happy that this street is closed. It's not the end of this revolution, but maybe it will be the one step here in Zduńska Wola. It will be the very big step in Zduńska Wola to make another difference. Yes.
Yeah, small steps, and I think it's nice that you show them that they can still function without the main square being accessible by car.
And I hope it is something we think, we people who works in offices, municipal offices, that people are so stereotypic, yes, and I think that young people see different. I had a daughter who is 18, and she don't want a car. She want to ride a bike. She want to go on foot. Yes, and this kind by train. And this kind of thinking is changing because I've got very old elder parents, and I see this a very big difference between those people. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also takes time. So I remember that we had the first road where cycles had the advantage on cars. It was in the early 90s. So you have big space for, and the cars has to stay behind the bicycle. So you cannot drive faster than 30 kilometers by car. And that was so after an experiment of 6-7 years was not accepted. So it became a normal road again. And now there is no normal road almost anymore for just cars. So there is always a dominance of the bicycle, and cars almost in the whole city is not allowed to drive faster than 30 kilometers. That's also, and now is the acceptance that that people will be fined when they drive 4 or 5 kilometers faster than 30. That is, when you're in a car, of course, you cannot imagine that it's very difficult to drive 30 kilometers by car. So people have to get used to this kind of new norm, a new standard, and it's now interesting how much accepted that will be, and that people adopted the new kind of standard, but it goes step by step. It would have been totally impossible 30 years ago. The same for the price of parking per hour. So we pay here almost €8 an hour in the city center, and that is, you have to do that. It goes very slowly.
Yeah, it discourages to leave the car for a long time, perhaps, and unnecessary periods. Actually, in Poland, there are still many cities who have a lot of free parking. There are no charges at all.
Yeah.
For example,
but still. And in many cases, it's only limited to the city center. Yeah.
Yeah, for example, for Munich, it's very important that the car industry it's very much, they take into account the importance of cars. That's very much in their system. And so when we talk about having a new generation of cars and make them electric, this is also is combined with shared cars. So we want to have less cars, but that is when the people in Munich talk about the next generation of cars. There must be the same number of cars, but they all electric. So it's about and of course that's an interest of their industry to keep on producing as much as possible cars. That's of course that's also something that's important in that situation. And you cannot get rid of that kind of thinking for tomorrow. Let's go slowly.
But also all this infrastructure that will be necessary for the electric cars, all these charging spots and so on. Yeah, a lot of work in this transition. Are there any more comments or questions? If not, I think I would like to thank you very, very much for Frank for organizing this meeting and for Hans for going through so much inspiring examples and also bringing a new perspective how we can develop cities thinking about all those actors. I have your presentation, so I will send it to the participants as well as the recording of this meeting. And thanks again for inspiring us and sharing all those bright ideas.
Okay. Good. Have a nice day together. And
thank you.
And thank you for the invitation. And
it was our pleasure. Yeah.
If there's something I can do for you, then let me know. And Frank, thank you for connecting us.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, thanks again.
Ciao.
Good day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.